It's been a year since Honkai Star Rail followed up the success of Genshin Impact by being released as another gacha waifu collectathon with gear rolls and money pits, and in that time I have been there virtually every step of the way. There were a couple times where I fell off for a couple weeks here and there as other games demanded my attention, but for the most part, Honkai Star Rail has delivered a consistently rewarding, ongoing experience that keeps me logging in day after day. Let me start with a disclaimer about gacha. If you're unfamiliar entirely, gacha games are games where you can spend resources purchasable with real money to gamble on in-game content to such a degree that it becomes central to the proceedings and thus elevates it beyond a simple loot box scenario. In Star Rail, you gamble on characters and weapons during seasonal rotating banners that offer one or two characters and weapons at a time. This content is only attainable during its specific windows, so if you miss a character or weapons window, you'll probably have to wait months for it to cycle back into season. This creates FOMO and incentivizes shelling out real money if you haven't acquired enough in-game currency, in this game Jade, to be lucky enough with your rolls. Because you're not guaranteed this character when you attempt to pull them. In Honkai, you spend a certain amount of Jade per attempt to acquire the 5-star character or weapon, which has less than a 1% chance of showing up on a per-roll basis. Naturally, these characters and weapons are incredibly hard to get, unless you get really lucky, but the odds are actually worse than it seems, because if you do manage to hit that 5-star roll, you initiate a 50-50 on whether you actually get the limited seasonal character you want, or a standard, more basic 5-star character that's always in the pool instead. If you lose the 50-50, it's back to the pulling board. Now, the game does make it so you can't lose more than one 50-50 in a row, so if you lose it, you're guaranteed to get the limited character the next time you get lucky, but the game doesn't guarantee you a 5-star character until you reach 90 pulls on a banner without having gotten one. Basically, if you have the worst luck on planet Earth, it can take you 180 attempts to get one character or weapon you want, and these attempts are not cheap. If you go into the Jade shop, you'll see different price points for the amounts of Jade you might want to buy, and each price point has a one-time bonus associated with it that doubles the amount of Jade you get the first time you use that price point. Now you might be thinking, wow, that sounds very generous, and that's the kind of thinking that lands you cut up and bleeding in the steel trap of gacha. The reason gacha is distinct from other games is because the economy in them is so fucking unbelievably overinflated. It's like someone took all your US dollars and replaced them with the currency of a starving nation. I told you it could take as much as 180 pulls to get a character with bad luck. Well, 100 US dollars will give you about 80 of them. The first time. Next time the bonus will be gone, and you'll get like 45 or 50 pulls worth instead. You poor, confused soul. You go into the gacha world like, I'm pretty sure I know what money is worth in the gaming industry, and you come out like, I need $200 to buy this one character in a single game at her base level of efficacy when I could also square root that and try to pull them multiple times to make them stronger. We're gamers, okay? We go to storefronts and buy large expansions for huge games for 20, 30 bucks. We spend 15 bucks on Game of the Year worthy indie titles, full games, and then we get on Honkai Star Rail and see a pair of tits with great stats and immediately turn into pay pigs. Please berate me, princess. I've gone into debt for you so I can kill enemies in the game a little faster. I am not worthy of your affection. Please treat me like the lowly, financially irresponsible slug that I am. I'm pretty sure the White House set the prices for Honkai Star Rail, because fast food these days seems like a steal in comparison. It doesn't sound so bad dropping a 50 on a character banner when the family trip to Taco Bell runs you the same fucking tab. Gacha mechanics are an insidious cancer that spreads throughout your brain cells and tries to hypnotize you into thinking this is normal. If you're going to play a gacha game and you're not the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, it's important for you to remember that this is not normal. This is not what money is worth in the gaming industry. Buy the $10 monthly battle pass if you must, because there's good value to be had there with all the resources it gives you, and even buy the express supply pass every now and then if you want, which gives you almost 30 bucks worth of pulls for $5 spread out over a 30-day period. But before you drop a fat stack as a last resort when the availability of your ill-fated character is about to close, think about what that could do for you outside of this financial black hole. Stellar Jade? I'd rather buy Stellar Blade, and for $100 I can get the upcoming Elden Ring DLC too. Missing characters in this game isn't the end of the world. They will rerun. You can save and stock up your free-to-playly earned Jade for the few characters that speak to you the most, and the standard 5-stars and even 4-star characters can carry you through pretty much any content in the game as long as you invest well in their stats, though that's a whole nother issue entirely. Anyway, that's my gacha rant out of the way. Buyer beware. Let's move on to the quality of the game. Honkai Star Rail is a turn-based RPG. You put 4 characters out on the field against however many enemies, and everybody on your side takes turns using basic attacks or spending limited but replenishable skill points to use their skills and build up energy. When their energy is full, they can unleash an ultimate attack at any time, no matter whose turn it is, and the cycle continues. Your characters have elemental types, like fire, ice, or electric, as well as paths they follow, which dictate the type of unit they are. So like, a character who follows the path of the hunt is a unit that specializes in single target DPS, whereas an Abundance character is a unit who heals. Harmony characters buff allies, Nihility characters debuff enemies, etc. There's some nuance there depending on the character. For example, Acheron and Kafka are both 5-star electric Nihility characters, but one specializes in detonating damage over time effects, while the other specializes in nuking the fuck out of everybody with their ultimate, but that's the general gist of it. Enemies have an HP bar and a toughness bar. The toughness bar reduces all damage they take, except from their elemental weaknesses, which you can see above the bar, and it can be broken by hitting them with said elemental weaknesses, dealing extra break damage, delaying their turns, and rendering them more vulnerable to all damage until they act again. You improve your characters by pouring an absurd amount of different resources into them. Books to increase their character level, film rolls to increase their light cone, aka weapon level, different trace materials depending on which path they follow to increase the efficacy of their abilities and fill out nodes on their skill tree, relics you can equip to them which roll random substats that can make or break the quality of the piece, and eidolons you get by pulling multiple copies of a character to give them extra perks in battle. If you never played Genshin and thus aren't used to this system and how all the parts intertwine, it can feel extremely overwhelming and stupefying, but looking up guides can always help, and the grind of maximizing your character is one that is never truly finished. This is a game that requires patience and diligence, but the investment process is very satisfying. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into categories is the general gameplay experience. This is a story-heavy game with many cutscenes, taking place over a variety of different worlds in the form of undertaking missions and side quests at your own pace. You can almost always take time to explore wherever you like and improve your characters on your own time. In fact, it'll be required of you at points because story missions need you to be at a certain adventure rank to start them, which you earn by doing basically anything and everything available to you to do. It'll be important to keep your characters built to the current necessary specs, and if you get to a point where you're too weak to progress, you'll need to be okay with taking time to improve, even if it takes several days with no story progress. Your resource grind is dictated by the amount of Trailblaze power you have, which is a resource that refills very slowly with time that you need in order to undertake certain character building activities like farming XP books or trace materials. There are certainly free-to-wait elements in Star Rail when it comes to the grind, but it costs nothing to explore the world or do missions of any other kind, including events that the game frequently does that give you rewards on completion. So your general gameplay experience is going to be going through story missions, exploring as you like, and undertaking side quests or opening chests and solving puzzles, using all your daily Trailblaze power and helpful ways to build your characters, all while trying to raise your adventure rank and either spending or saving any earned Jade on passes to pull for characters. Let me just say right now, only spend Jade on special passes, the orange ones, the ones for the limited banners. Never spend Jade on the standard. You'll get many standard passes naturally as you play, until you don't, but even then, the limited event characters are always better to pull for. This is turning into more of a guide than a review, so let's get to the game graph, where we judge story, graphics, mechanics, and fun as separate categories before culminating together in a final score. Starting with story. The story of Honkai Star Rail gives, and gives some more, far beyond most people's capacity for taking. The lore is objectively impressive. There's a lot of inherently exciting things at play, and it's got all the set dressing and data entry of an epic intergalactic tale, but a lot of times it manages to be decently boring about bringing all that into the player's view. It's kind of like anime Star Wars in terms of scope, but only occasionally exciting. They use actual full anime cutscenes pretty sparingly, which is a shame because those are the best things to watch, especially when they're battle-related, instead generally opting to give you text box dialogue to span through while characters walk around and look serious at each other. Almost all of it is voiced well, and many of the characters start to feel iconic and familiar as you spend more time acclimating to their existence. It's not even that the characters themselves are compelling, because most of them have yet to be emotionally or psychologically explored to any real depth. It's just that this cast of people feels like it's made its mark, leading to a stronger roster of characters than Genshin, in my opinion. Granted, I haven't played that game since the first Ganyo rerun. There's a fantastic world here with complex politics and lots of moving parts, but it would take a historian who didn't sleep through half of it to explain it all. Great story, but lacking in delivery, so I give it an 80. Next up is graphics, and the graphics are decently good. The animated cutscenes really shine. There's some gorgeous stuff being done in there sometimes, but otherwise it's pretty standard fare. As an anime-ish game, I'm not really sure what better would even look like, so maybe I should be more impressed than I am, but everything does look stylish and sleek, so I'll give graphics an 85. Now we have mechanics, and I'm going to judge the gacha parts and the game parts separately. For gacha, this shit gets like a 10 out of 100. Everything is absurdly overpriced. A lot of this is just the nature of gacha as a whole, but I look at these systems like even for a gacha game, you could have the price of everything, triple the rewards of everything, and double the odds of everything, and you would still rake in billions of dollars as a company with an ecstatic player base to show for it. Would making the 5-star drop rate 1% instead of 0.56 or whatever break the game? Would making events that give you more than 4 pulls worth of jade break the game? You can get up to 6 copies of a character to boost them. There's still plenty to pull for if people hit the jackpot early, and this might sound crazy, but I think people are more likely to spend money if the odds of it being valuable are more in their favor. I guarantee you make enough money per year from the Battle Pass alone to fund your company for the next decade. There's a lot of grime in their decision making. Why is the 50-50 even a thing? Why in endgame do we get virtually no standard passes anymore? You get 1 per week from Simulated Universe, 3 each for leveling new characters that aren't released that often, and maybe 5 in the Battle Pass. That's like 15 a month. That's a single 4-star light cone or an eidolon for a character we've already maxed out per month. I'm being for real when I say we should get 3 or 5 standard passes a day just for logging in. You want us to pull or not? They're standard passes. What are you afraid of? We might accidentally get too many copies of the completely outclassed basic 5 stars? Bailu deserves to be E6 just to justify her existence at this point. Oh no, I broke the game by having E6 Yan Qing. Oh wait, E0 Jinglu still blows him out of the water. It's laughable how valuable they think these eidolons are. Like, imagine you spend $150 to get Sela right when the game first came out because she was the first banner. She's a quantum hunt, so she does big single target damage, and you didn't know she was going to get power crept like all hell later on, so it costs $150 to get her, right, according to your luck that we're going to pretend is constant for this example. So then the game is like, well, people should totally waste the same amount of money to try and pull her again because they'll get her first eidolon, which raises her crit rate by 15% when the enemy she's attacking has less than 80% HP. Oh yeah? I'm supposed to drop another 150 to give her 15% crit rate? How deranged are these people? If you get a 5-star character, their drop rate in the banner should be increased to like 10%. You can keep the spirit of gacha alive, but contrary to what we're seeing, it's not actually illegal to make halfway decent concessions to your player base, many of which have given you more money than any game in history should have ever been worth. $300 in Honkai Star Rail should give me every character guaranteed forever, and it's crazy that this game exists in a climate where saying that is crazy. Ultimate editions of regular games have to justify their $100+ price tags with months to years of guaranteed content, which I still often lambast because even that shit generally isn't worth it, but stuff like this goes beyond the pale. $150 for a crit rate buff on a single character in a single game. But then the question on the other side of the coin, is the game free-to-play friendly enough that these kinds of insane valuations are less relevant? I've played this game since launch. We're a year in. I have generally tried to stay as free-to-play as humanly possible, but I have bought multiple battle passes because I do think they're worth doing, and I do think this game deserves some money for the content they provide. In the years since the game came out, there have been 18 limited event characters on their own banners. If you're a strictly free-to-play player, no supply passes, no battle passes, no spending of any kind, and you have good luck, like above average good luck, and assuming you wanted to try to get every character, and assuming you played every day and got all the free rewards you could possibly get, you could probably reasonably expect to get 10 out of 18 characters. With the 50-50 system in place, F2Ps have to skip banners a lot to try and save for the next one, and that's to say nothing of the companion weapon banners, because each character also has a signature weapon you have to pull for separately if you want it, and if you're free to play, you're getting 0 of those, and I mean 0, they just are not worth the pulls when they could be going to the next character instead. But are all the event characters even worth pulling for? The majority of them are. I've skipped 3 characters, and I wish I had 2 of them. As much as I usually decry my own luck in video games, my Star Rail luck has been decent. It almost always takes me at least 60 pulls on a banner, but I've only lost like 4 50-50s. I have the benefit of having gotten most of the rerun characters the first time around, back when each patch only came with 1 character, so any new players are going to come in and see 2 different event characters at once every time, and there's going to be twice the FOMO. Power creep does happen, but it usually takes a few months for characters to get invalidated if they're gonna be, and the game always releases content around their banner that they excel in at the time. But back to the free-to-play aspect. Star Rail, like many gachas I've played, is very front-loaded with rewards to entice you into the hook, while gradually giving you less and less as you go until you're at the unfinished endgame and standard passes don't exist anymore, while Jade becomes an endangered species. It's very underhanded and punishing to the players who, if anything, deserve more rewards for sticking with your game this long, but you'll have a fulfilling time for dozens of hours before this happens, as long as you like running around and pressing the A button and occasionally fighting. As for the gameplay side of the mechanics, I think they're quite good. I love the combat, I like the character building, except for the RNG on the relics. Relics can roll different substats, kind of like Diablo, but unlike Diablo, you can't reroll them. You just have to farm new relics with a micropenis % chance to have all the good shit you want on them and have those stats be upgraded accordingly, because that process is also random. This game needs to let you reroll stats on relics. It can take months to find one perfect piece of a 4-piece set for one character. But the build process is deep, and I do like that, as well as the strategy behind team building, making different teams to deal with different kinds of enemies with different weaknesses. The functional mechanics of this game from a turn-based RPG perspective are top-notch, so I'm giving those a 90. Now for fun. Is Honkai Star Rail fun? Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately for greed and temptation and desire and FOMO, yes. This game is extremely fun. So much so that I actually started a new account on my PS5 while maintaining my main account on my PC just to go back through and recapture the nostalgia and see how different things feel and which different characters I'd end up pulling. I started that like 2 weeks ago. Turns out I can never escape Clara. It also can't be understated what a huge difference it makes having Dr. Ratio free in the beginning of the game. We all got him for free a couple months ago, and now everyone gets him when they start. He's an event 5-star imaginary hunt character, and previously the only way you could even have an imaginary character for the first third of the game's lifespan is if you got lucky enough to get 5-star Welt on the standard banner. Dr. Ratio's also super good, so it's not even like a hand-me-down. He just chucks Roman architecture at people and kicks ass. It's been nice. And for that reason, I do still recommend anyone who's even halfway interested in Star Rail to pick it up. Now is a great time. There's 2 weeks left on Aventurine's banner, a 5-star imaginary preservation character, and if you can get him, you'll be practically set defensively for life. Or Jinglu has her rerun going too, a 5-star ice destruction character who has some of the best DPS in the game. They just announced what the next banner character is going to be too, and for people who are caught up with the story, there's going to be a massive amount of interest in pulling her. New players will definitely be behind the 8 ball as far as character choice is concerned, but if the characters you do get are built well, even the 4 stars, you can handle anything. Fun gets a 90, with points lost because of how the story can definitely drag. And now for the overall score, which is not an aggregate of the previous scores because some things are weighted differently. I'm giving Honkai Star Rail an 89 out of 100. This game is so good and so egregious at the same time. And that's going to do it for this game graph. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos and put me on a banner, and I'll see you guys next time.